Here is where we left off in the previous chapter. We had the game scene with the state machine that we don't need anymore, so we can delete it. Now, we're going to create the player with the animated character, just a base scene to get started here. In the Assets, 3D, Mannequin directory, you will find a GLB file. This is a GLTF export of a 3D scene, and GLTF is an open standard for 3D data. You can double click the file to create a new inherited scene. So when Godot imports the files you export from Blender or another 3D package, it will create inherited scenes for you that reuse the hierarchy and the data from the imported mesh. You can see that it converts animations from Blender NLA strips here to an animation player directly, where you have all the keyed bones and the animation data. So you can manipulate it from Godot if you'd like. Having an inherited scene makes it so if you add new animations to your character in Blender, for example, you can re-export it, and all the changes you made to that scene will be added to the newly imported character. Now, in this course, I'm going to clear the inheritance here because of a limitation in the version of Godot I'm using, which makes it so that some of the options in the animation player don't get properly inherited, like looping the animation. I'm going to show you that, but first let us save our character. So I'm going to name it Mannequin and save the scene to the source directory, create a new folder for our player or mannequin, and save it there. Then if I go to the game scene, so note that the idle animation is set to autoplay on load and to loop. I'm going to add my mannequin scene to the game scene, like so. Add a camera so we can see it, because you can't see anything without a camera here, and set that camera to be current. Press F5, and you'll see that the animation play once, and it does not loop. So that is why I'm going to go back to the mannequin scene and right-click and clear the inheritance. This will make it so all the data will be saved directly in that scene, and if you re-import the character, you have to manually re-import the skeleton and the body or merge it into that scene. So if you can, use scene inheritance. That bug should be fixed in the future. Now we're going to create a base script for Mannequin so that we have it done. I'm just going to set the class name on it to Mannequin. We'll use that for type hints moving forward. And now we can create a player scene that's going to use our Mannequin character. So scene, new scene, and let's use, I'm going to go back to the 3D viewport, an other node. As a starting type, we want to use kinematic body. This is the base node for physics if you want to control the way your character moves around the world and interacts with collision boxes and all. So we're going to name it player. As it's a kinematic body 2D, it needs a collision shape to interact with the world. So let's add a new collision shape node. And that node we're going to set to a capsule. So create a new capsule shape in the shape slot. And the point of a capsule is it has these round areas all around it that makes it interact pretty well with slopes in particular. It gives you smooth motion going up slopes and in a variety of cases. Now we are going to expand the capsule resource and set the radius to 0.25 and height to 1.25, and I will rotate my capsule so that it's aligned with the y-axis. So rotate and keep the control key down to quickly rotate to 90 degrees on the x-axis or around the x-axis. Press W and click the green arrow to move the capsule up now. And I want to align the base with the origin more or less precisely. Okay, so this represents our character. This is what will actually move, rotate, and interact with the world. And the mannequin scene that we're going to drag and drop next on our player is just going to be a skin for the character. Now, note one thing, is that our character is a little forward compared to the center of the scene. So we can either move Manakini, so its center of mass is aligned with the origin, or go back to the Manakini scene, and we're going to move it there. I'm going to go to the animation player to have the idle animation so I can see the feet on the ground, and I'm going to move the root node or the Manakini node. Let's say we're going to use the root this time. I'm going to move it back a little bit so the character's center of mass projected on the ground is the origin of the scene. That way you can assume that the character's animation will align well with the character in the player scene. I'm going to save that, go back to the unsaved scene, so you will see Manakini has moved here, and I'm going to save my player scene in the player directory. We're also going to add a player script to it. Similarly to Manakini, we'll set it to the class name player, save that, and we're going to add the player's state machine that will control that kinematic body directly. So press Ctrl A, look for state machine to add a state machine node, and we're going to add a first state inside of it and set that state as the initial state in our state machine. So then we're going to rename that state to move. It's going to be the base state that will handle movement and movement related settings. And in our state machine, click the assign button next to initial state to set the move node, the move state, as the starting state for our state machine. Let's do that. Now that we have the state machine and the skin of the character, we're going to update the player script to store references to these two nodes. So click on the player script to open it, and we're going to add two unready variables called skin. It's going to be of type Manakini, and we're going to store a reference to the Manakini node, and duplicate the line with Ctrl D. We're going to add the state machine. The type is going to be state machine, like so, and we're going to reference the state machine node. So that is that, and then in the game scene, we can replace Manakini with our player. So I'm going to search player in the file system tab. Okay, move the camera maybe a little bit. So one thing you can do here is press Ctrl 2, 3, something like that. Ctrl 2 is enough. I'm going to preview the camera. Click the little checkbox in one of the viewports, and in the other viewport, that way I can move the camera and see the result. And I'm going to put the camera above the character, like so. But with that, for now, we're going to focus on our player and start coding it in the next video.